Welcome to Bad Gear, the show about the world's most hated audio tools. I don't always review Behringer gear, but when I do, I usually make sure that their lawyers are most likely on a vacation. Today, however, against the advice of my legal counsel, we are going to talk about CZ1, a Volca-esque take on Casio's iconic 80s synths, and given the fact that I literally asked for it on a freaking thumbnail around 2 years ago, they should probably not sue, but hire me. At the first glance, CZ1 is ticking all the
"We'll go somewhere where there's cheese"
boxes. Pungent organs, well-aged stringy goodness, finely shredded bass, and goated brass chords. As long as you can live with a maximum polyphony of 3 instead of the 4 to 8 voices of the original CZs. As we are talking about similarities and differences to Casio's guilty 80s pleasures, no, it is not an authentic reproduction. Yes, there are audible differences we will talk about in a bit, and Behringer did their best to make the workflow even nerdier than it was when New Coke was brought to the market. They added a chorus and analog filter though. Much appreciated. That being said, CZ1 is still based on phase distortion, the pimple-faced teen sibling to the much more popular FM synthesis paradigm. A handful of crude digital waveforms can be stitched together and modified in their overtone structure, ideally changing over time in a musically meaningful way, controlled by envelopes so complex they're most probably capable of tracking the S&P 500 during the 1987 stock market crash. The same envelope technology can be applied to amplitude and pitch. 2 of these engines can be combined, flipped in polarity, tuned, detuned, and made subject to ring and noise modulation. Most of this is accessible via front panel controls, but nonetheless requires an unhealthy dose of old-school menu diving. An additional set of features is locked behind even more cryptic UI procedures: vibrato, an arpeggiator, every filter parameter that isn't cutoff and resonance, and the basic yet usable sequencer. While the measly 16 user editable preset slots of Behringer's little CZ are authentic, quite a few of its idiosyncrasies aren't. First of all, the envelopes tend to be sloppier than the ones on the originals, making it harder to create the punchy tones the ancient Casios are known for. You can work around this by cranking a global DCW parameter not found on the original UI and resorting to the analog filter for further sound shaping. Not ideal, but doable. What is more, the overall timbre seems to be more shrill in the highs and a little muffled in the bass region, with clearly audible aliasing. For a more scientific analysis, I strongly recommend Keen on Key's take on the subject. The built-in pseudo keyboard is even less playable than the one on the CZ101, although MIDI implementation is great otherwise. Loading patches via sysex didn't work here, and build quality is surprisingly good, especially for a price you won't even get the Arturia plugin for. Given Casio's reluctance to recreate their vintage classics, Behringer's little CZ is a tempting offer. Can it replace the nerdy 80s cheese machines? You have already heard the synth in today's intro tune. I was missing the rubbery punch of the original and the analog filter can't salvage it. I wanna know if we can work around that in the first jam. That worked better than expected. While the patches themselves are far from being exciting, they sit well in the mix and ungodly amounts of FX add necessary drama. Casio envelopes can be frustrating, so the conventional ADSR of the filter is more than welcome. Let's try to keep the 80s kitsch to a bare minimum and use CZ1 as yet another digital analog hybrid synth. The filter punches above its weight once you find the sweet spots, and the envelopes are sufficiently snappy, ideal for covering up the cheesy waveforms. Time to combine all the workarounds and coping strategies we've employed today and ask ourselves how much Casio organ can a finale take before people switch back to food content and doom scrolling surprisingly progressive sounding house music. Verdict. Let's get this out of the way first. CZ1 is not a worthy replacement for the original Casio Synth. The presets are few and corny, UI and polyphony are a downgrade, it seems unfinished, and if you just want a mix of digital oscillators and an analog filter, there are plenty of more approachable alternatives. Casio veterans will be disappointed by the lack of authenticity, its overall cheesiness might deter younger audiences, and while the plug-in version is certainly better suited for actual music production, the shrink rate form factor is not ideal for a live situation. I don't think I would be a good fit for Behringer's company culture, but while we're at it, there are 3 classic bad gear pipe dreams to consider. 1. Create a rompler based on samples of brands which can no longer afford a lawsuit. 2. Make the Loomer Vox a reality. Or 3. Finally create an all-analog, all-in-one version of Rebirth RB338. Thanks for not suing and see you next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Feel free to like, subscribe, become a patron and use one of the links down below to support the channel regardless of what your bad gear gas commands you to buy.
Thanks to all my patrons for supporting the channel. And welcome to the monthly shoutouts.
What the hell?
Tier 4.
Sean Wolf, Jerry Snee,
Different creatures, Verder people,
Roland Solheim,
Fluffy, Calvin Steves,
JHBA, SDC,
Casio Synth,
Lord Rikus,
The Mist,
Candy Shaver,
Blaster,
PJ Venn Diagram,
Thomas Diefenbach, Coriolis,
Brian Gregory.
Eduard, Marinus Krijverhoven,
Tier 6.
Dagobert Michelsen,
BNJ, The Village Forlorn.
Again, thank you so much for supporting the channel. See you next month.